Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, my students. This is our second lecture online. We studied last lecture about placing and fulfilling orders. After we fulfill an order and place it, the seller is going to order the goods for the buyer and will send it to the buyer. While this process, mistakes happen. So we need something called complaining or complaining letter, and in return the seller is going to make an apology for the buyer because he made a mistake. So our lesson tonight about complaints and apologies. So they have what? A relationship between complaints and apologies. We cannot find a complaint without an apology. The complaint from the customer, that we can name him the buyer, and apologies comes from the seller. To write a successful complaints and a successful apology, we need what? Steps to write this letter. But before that, let us talk about complaints and apologies. Why complaints happened? Complaints happened when the customer receive his goods. Sometimes he find the goods found damaged, or supply of substandard quality or defective goods, order carelessly fulfilled, inordinate delay in supplying goods. Examples to understand this well. What does it mean here, goods found damaged? Sometimes when you open the cartons or when you open the package, you can find your goods in bad way. Sometimes something broken down, something messed. So what you have to do? You have to write a complaint message to the seller. Supply of substandard quality or defective goods. Sometimes when you open a machine that you exported from outside Yemen, for example, sometimes you write in your order, you write some standards or characteristics of a machine. When you find this machine is not the same machine that you ask for in the order, you can find some of the characteristics or some of the features, but you cannot find all the things that you ask from the seller. We can call it what? Quality or defective goods. Order carelessly fulfilled, or sometimes inordinate delay. What's the meaning here? Inordinate delay in supplying goods. Sometimes you ask the seller to send it maximum in 1 month or 2 months, and you're surprised that they didn't make it in the same time, and they sent it and they delay your goods. They have to make an excuse, or they have to explain, or they have to write justifications, mubarrirat, why they are late. So how they will write justifications for you, or they write the apology? You have to write a complaint. Why you delay my goods? Wrong invoicing. What does it mean? Sometimes you have a deal with the buyer and seller. They have a deal, for example, about the amount of the goods. For example, $6,000 or €8,000. But when you open the invoice, you will find they add $200 or €200 for shipping. They add $200 for something else, like fees of the certificates of origin, certificates. So what you have to do? You have to make a complaint about the extra money they added in the invoice. So when they have wrong invoice, you have to complain. The last one, poor after sales services. You ask them for a price and they give you another price. So you will have problems with the goods that you receive, and you cannot make a marketing for this goods. So you have to complain for them to compensate you, or to send you another part for a machine that you receive it from them. The seller supply has to deal with these complaints very wisely and politely. Why? Because if you are in the shoe of the buyer or in the place of the buyer, so we have a rule, or they have a rule, or they have a philosophy that the customer is always right. But even you are right, or the customer is right, he must write a polite letter, not a rude letter. Don't write it and say, why you didn't do this? Why? Don't write it directly. You have to write it in polite way, and you have to have rules or guidelines for drafting complaints. Let's read them and understand the meaning of these guidelines for complaints. A letter of complaints. In a direct approach letter, a customer has every right to complain. We know that. But he should not be rude. We advise to follow the following hints while writing a complaint. Number 1. Regret the needs to complain in calm and courteous style. For example, don't say that I'm sorry to complain. I'm sorry to tell you. I would like to tell you. Don't write immediately. You have wrong things in your goods and you don't do that, and you don't just argue with them. Write it in with regret. Number 2. State clearly what has gone wrong with the fulfillment of the order. For example, you have a mistake, or they have a mistake in the goods they send it to you. Don't talk about all the goods that they have bad goods and just only criticize. No, you have to write about the wrong thing in the goods, or what is the mistake exactly. This is when we say state clearly what has gone wrong. Number 3, reference to the order or quotation date of arrival goods. So when you have an email example, sometimes you have to have to return the email, or to answer some points in the email. You have to highlight. For example, you have to highlight the date of the email, the previous email, or you have to write a quotation for the previous email, and then refer to the previous email. You say, from example, say you send us an email on, and you have to mention the day and the date with the year exactly, the previous email, and then you have to return it back to them with a new email. So you have to mention what the reference, المرجعية. Refer to inconvenience, loss caused in terms of the money, sales good, goodwill, etc. For example, what does it mean here? When they send you the goods, after sometimes you have to complain, for example, about what something inconvenience or something lost or something. For example, you have to count after you get your goods. Sometimes you find something lost in the accessories of a machine, accessories of or sometimes samples. You miss some samples. They promise to give you an extra buckets or an extra accessory, but they didn't bring it with the goods. So you have to ask them and complain why you didn't bring all the things that I asked in the order. So you have to write about the loss. الفقدان، إذا في فقدان أشياء in the goods. Let's go to number 8. Suggest what step can be taken to rectify the situation. Here, state or suggest what the step. Sometimes when you write a complaint, if you are smart one, you can write what suggestions for what, to solve the problem. For example, you have a problem here. You can suggest from the seller to give you what in the coming inquiry or in the coming order, please give me that and that. So you can ask them for compensate. This order now you can you have to market this order, and in the coming order please compensate. For example, you can ask them, please compensate me in the coming order the loss or the mistakes they did in the previous order. Number F, close with expression of faith in the suppliers' honesty and expectation of promote and favorable actions. For example, when you finish your message, or when you finish writing your complaint, write sweet words like, for example, I trust you, I trust that you have to motivate what the seller to compensate you. عشان يعوضك you have to write what good words. For example, I trust you that you will return back my mistakes. You have to fix this problem. You have to solve this problem. And I'm thankful and grateful for your cooperation. You have to mention some words to let them what reply to you. Guidelines for drafting replies to complaints. A reply to a letter must be what polite, must be what certain, and you have to write promises. You have to tell the buyer that you, or promise the buyer that you will compensate. سوف تعوضه. You will compensate him, or you will return, or you will fix fix this mistake, or you will solve this problem. So you have to mention what, for example, you have to mention what, number one, promptly acknowledge the letter and thank the customer for writing it. At the beginning, you have to thank the customer and say thank you for complaining, and we are ready, or we have to have a knowledge about the mistake itself. For example, if you are an employee in customer services or customer care in the company that you are working in, so you must have a knowledge about the mistakes that happened in the goods. You have to call your manager, or you have to call customer services, or you have to call customer care and ask them about this goods, and when they send it, what is the mistake, and then you can reply to your customer. So you have to have what? A knowledge, معرفة. Number B, express regret for inconvenience caused to the customer. So you have to say sorry, we are sorry that we made these mistakes, we feel pity, and you can say that we are ready as a company, we are ready to compensate you, we are ready to return it back, we are ready to send you what you have lost, we are ready to fix the problem in the invoice. They are examples for what? For expressing regret. Number C, admit the fault if something has actually gone wrong. You have to admit. Don't say in your reply, this is not our mistake. This is not our mistake. We didn't do this. Don't come to ask. Don't order any goods from us again. Don't deal with your customer as if that you are in need for this customer because you have another customer. No. Deal with all customers that they are the only customers that you have. Even you have 1,000 customers. So you have to admit the fault. تعترف بخطأك. Number D. Assure the customer of his sincere effort to make amends. For example, you have to assure them, for example, to say, I'm sure that we will return the loss, or we are going to fix the invoice, or we are going. So you have to make what? To be sincere, to be loyal, to be what? To give him the truth, or to tell him the truth that you are ready to solve this problem. Specify what action he is going to take. What the meaning here? Specify what the action he is going to take. So you have to write even details. So you can tell him that I'm ready to ask my manager. I will tell my manager. I will talk to my boss. So specify what action you are going to take. For example, if you are a correspondent in a company, so don't answer the reply to the complaints immediately. So tell him, I'm ready. I have read your message, and I am ready to tell my manager to speak to my boss. So what are the procedures? ما هي الإجراءات اللي بتتخذها مع مديرك عشان ترد على الطلب? What are the procedures that you will take? Number F. Close with offer of a better service in future. For example, you finished the reply. You have to tell him at the end, or ask your manager that in the next order we will not make these mistakes. In the next order we will offer you an extra 10 buckets, an extra 10 accessories, an extra. So you will give him something like to make him what happy, or to make him what to make him feel, or to make him feel happy that you will compensate him in the next order. This is how to reply a complaint. Now we have here two examples. Example number 1, about someone who complained. Dear sir, we must first thank. So this is a complaint here, and then you say yours sincerely, and then reply. You have to this is the reply to the complaining. We have here an example of complaining and complaints letter, and we have here an example of replying to the customer. The other example here, the example number 1 in page 42, and example number 2 in page 43 and 44, about how to write a complaint and how to write a reply. So you have to be polite in your writing, certain how to be don't say bad words. You have to be to criticize the things that you will ask about without mentioning something else from previous year or previous month. Don't mix all the problems together. Mention only the problem that you have in your goods, and be precise what you have to do, what you have to write, and then you have to communicate with other employees around you. You have to communicate with your manager before you answer any complaint. You have to speak with customer services manager or customer care manager in your company. Talk to your boss, talk to your manager before you write any reply to your customer. Thank you very much.